Now let's try to understand a keyword called throw. Okay, so basically we have two keywords here. One is throw, second is throws. We'll see them one by one. So what I will do here is, first of all, I will just reduce the number of lines we have so that it will be easy for us to understand. I will remove all the exception. Okay, I will stick to 1, which is divided by 0. And let's put only one statement here. Let me also remove this one because it's not needed. We only want 2 exception, arithmetic, and if something goes wrong, which we have not handling, that will be handled by exception. Okay, so let's say when you divide this number, of course the value of I is 2, so everything is good. And most of the time people will put curly brackets on the same line and it normally works. And this is basically preferred. Okay, so let's say when you do this execution, of course there's no exception here because we are dividing by 2, right? So if I try to compile this code and run, everything is smooth. You can see we are dividing the number 18 by 2, which is 9, and that's what you got here because we are printing the value of j, and then we are printing by. Everything is normal. Now the thing is, what if I'm dividing this number by, let's say, 20? Now in this case, when you have a greater number, of course you can divide 18 by 20. Now the quotient here would be 0. If you can see, the value is 0. And there's no exception. But what if you want to create or you want to generate an exception? Maybe you are doing something here. Let's do this thing. Let's say the value of I is 0. So of course you will print cannot divide by 0. Now instead of printing cannot divide by 0, what you can do is, let's skip this part. Let's say let's not print any error. Let's handle the error. If someone is trying to divide a number by 0, I want to divide the number by 1. 18 divided by 1. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm not printing anything, I'm just trying to handle it. It will print some output. So if I compile and run, you can see it says 18. Okay, I don't want to print error or something. If someone enters a denominator 0, I will say maybe I can also print here. That's the default output. So that if it prints 18, it will also print that's a default output. If you can see, if I do that, so it will say that's a default output and it will print 18. Okay, now what I want is every time there's an exception, it should do this thing. So it's not just about printing the message. You can actually handle something. Example, let's say if you're trying to connect to our internet and then the network is not there, of course it will throw the exception. So instead of sending a message to the user, we were not able to connect to the server, you can simply retry, right? So what you're doing is you're trying to handle the exception. Here, we just tried. Of course, this is not a good logic. I'm just trying to make you understand how we can do it. One more example. Let's say you have 2 databases. One is a primary database, second is a backup database. You're trying to connect to a primary database and something goes wrong. Of course, you will not simply tell user, hey, we are not able to connect to the primary database. You will simply try to connect with the backup database. And that's what you can do in the catch block. That's what we are doing here with this logic. Now let's say you are dividing a number by 20. Now in this case, it will print 0. Okay, but what if you don't want to print 0? You want to print the default output is 18. Maybe you want to do that. That means what I'm saying is, even if the catch block is not getting called, I want to call the catch block. Because in the catch block, you're basically trying to handle the exception. And if you don't have the exception, it will not call the catch block. That is not something we want. So to solve that problem, what you can do is, you can basically check if the value of j is 0. Okay, because we don't want 0. In this case, if the value of j is 0, you can basically call the catch block. But how do you call a catch block? Catch is not a simple function, right? Where you can write catch by passing a message. No, it's not a normal function or normal method. What you have to do is you have to basically use a keyword called throw, and you have to create an object of arithmetic exception. So you can do that. You can simply say new arithmetic exception. It's a class, right? You can create the object. It's that simple. Now what you're doing is you're basically trying to create an error here. You're trying to throw the error. So this is the exception you got the object and you are throwing. Now since you are throwing, catch will catch it. Okay, let's see if this works. Compile, no issue, run. Oh, can you see that it says that's the default output. It is printing 18. So you got 0 here, but then we are checking if it is 0, then throw the exception. Okay, maybe you want to connect to another database which you have written the code in the catch block. So you can do that here. Okay, you can literally call the catch block with the help of throw keyword. There's one more thing. What if you also want to print the message? Somewhere here you want to print E. Now by default, if you try to compile this code and run, yes, it will say arithmetic exception, but you can see it is not printing the message. I want the message as well. Remember it was printing slash by 0 or divided by 0. I want to print such messages. So you can actually pass a message in the constructor. You can say, I don't want to print 0. Okay, something like that. Whatever your message you want to send, you can do that in the constructor. So you can say, it says, this is your message. I don't want to print 0. So if you want to send a message, put that in a constructor. It will do it for you. Don't worry. You don't have to manually go and type the message. So whatever message you have, every time you create this object, you can pass the message. And that's how we can use a throw keyword. So just to reiterate, throw keyword is used to throw the exception. Okay. And then catch block will be catching it.